Hi everyone. Today, let's talk about Crowdstrike. This is a company that's definitely been rallying pretty much throughout the last several months, and we'll definitely look at the charts a little bit later. It's definitely outperforming all of the major indices, and we will definitely take a look at that chart. And due to its number one position in endpoint security, it's definitely pretty highly valued. So we'll take a look at some of the metrics that show that it is pretty highly valued, but it still seems to be in a bullish pattern. Then I'll show a clip from one of the vice presidents from Crowdstrike and some of the demand and issues that they're seeing due to the war in Ukraine. Then we'll take a look at the technicals and how they compare to the NASDAQ. Then we'll take a look at some of the trade ideas around Crowdstrike. Definitely has a lot of volatility with some pretty high credits and not a ton of volume, but it could certainly make you some money if this stock continues to rally. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this as well as portfolio overviews every single week, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future content. I've really been getting a lot of solid support and tons more engagement than I've really seen in the past, so I really appreciate all of you liking and subscribing and getting my channel out to more people so we can really help more people invest their money and build a better future. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So Goldman Sachs, one of the biggest banks in the world, says that this company is on the rise and they continue to upgrade the stock. They had a price target of around $241 and they raised that up to $285 on Tuesday. And currently the stock is down 26% from its all-time highs in November. And you could certainly attribute some of that to the war in Ukraine as the reason for the upgrade, because cyber is continuing to be one of the largest areas for this non-conventional war across the world. Upon the upgrade, the stock rose over 3% and is now down 25% from its all-time highs, and there's certainly potential for the war in Ukraine to continue to expose threats as a result of their attacks. Cybersecurity continues to be a big concern in the war, not just in Ukraine, but across the West. Russia has lots of military hackers, which they have used in Ukraine several times, and generally across the world. Companies in Palo Alto have noticed a 12% increase. Cybersecurity companies across the industry have seen pretty strong demand, with Palo Alto Networks up 12% for the year and Mandiant up 27% year to date. They say Crowdstrike is positioned in a sweet spot, getting accelerated by the deteriorating threat environment. Goldman also points out that this is one of the fastest growing tech companies, and as a result, Crowdstrike is best positioned to take advantage of all of the demand in this sector. Of course, there's always some downside risk to stocks. Otherwise, it would be trading much higher and already be priced in. So let's take a look at what some of those are. This analyst is actually going the other way, downgrading Crowdstrike from a buy to a hold because it is pretty highly valued and factoring in quite a bit of growth. We say Crowdstrike is our preferred play in cloud narrative endpoint security, or EDR, kind of mimicking some of the same talking points from Goldman, that they are well positioned in this industry, which is seeing a lot of demand. But of course, when there's a lot of demand in an industry, some of the bigger players tend to move in, and companies like Microsoft are starting to move into the area in an attempt to compete. They say over the last several months, they've been adding exposure since February and March, up around 45% and 19% respectively, but at this point, it's starting to look fully valued. In terms of profitability, the company has maintained a pretty strong subscription gross margin, and operating margins continue to increase, hitting their highest level at 19% for adjusted operating margins, but they're still in the negative for GAAP EBITDA. They say the company has demonstrated strong growth, around 62% or $431 million in Q4, and they increased their operating margins to 19%, as I already mentioned. They say the company is still unprofitable, but they are continuing to improve their margins. You can see here their overall margins at 21%, which is definitely moving in the right direction. Looking at their annual recurring revenue, you can see it is increasing and still on track to hit their 2026 goal of around $5 billion. And you can see their year-over-year percentage change decreasing. And anytime a growth company starts to slow down on their growth, that usually means you're going to see a multiple decrease, meaning people are not going to pay as much for that company because it's not growing as fast as it was before and it's not factoring in as much future potential. So getting to their point, based on their range, they're saying that this is a hold right here in the middle, and they expect it to go potentially up a little bit more, or it could go down a little bit. That's why they're marking it as a hold. Next up, I want to see a little bit of what the vice president has to say about the war in Ukraine and potential cyber threats resulting from that conflict.
Question for you. Have you seen increased activity from Russian threat actors with each round of sanctions? And I'm wondering about sanctions directly connected to the tech industry. Could the tech industry have an impact, whether it's not providing the hardware, microchips or whatever, or blocking, and I don't know much about this, so blocking dialogue, for lack of a better term, between, I guess, actors coming out of Russia to other platforms? Often these things are all interconnected. In order to get one thing done, you have to go through other platforms. And could you just block anything that's coming out of Russia?
To the first part, yes, we have been observing increased interest from Russian threat actors in targeting the West. In the immediate lead up to the war in Ukraine, they did conduct a number of disruptive attacks in mid-January, and also hours before a troop movement began into Ukraine, there was another disruptive, destructive cyber attack at the hands of Russian threat actors. And so we have been observing increased reconnaissance against U.S. infrastructure. And CISA, the government agency, actually put out a report about this, I think just last week, warning organizations to keep their shields up.
So what is CrowdStrike doing to get ahead of some of these potential cyber attacks?
Yeah, so our technology and our intelligence services and our managed services are all on high alert. We have been since early January, and we're working with customers to ensure that they're prepared for this. And what the White House issued in an executive order was that the government really needs to step up its technology. A lot of organizations have not really been investing in infrastructure, and that was the whole point of the hearing yesterday, is that critical infrastructure and government agencies and generally enterprises need to do security well. They need to get the right talent, and they need to bring in advanced technologies like EDR, zero trust, multi-factor authentication, and to do threat hunting to go engage these Russian threat actors or whichever country they're concerned about as soon as they get access to systems in order to stop them.
So despite her kind of weird way of asking questions and general ignorance, clearly he knows what he's talking about, and they're seeing increased activity and increased demand for these types of products. So finally, let's take a look at the technicals here. As you can see, had a pretty precipitous drop here, all the way down to somewhere around $150 per share, up from around $300. So a large drop. They mentioned that 47% drop in the article that we read earlier. And you can see it's right around that marker, 48%. And since then, it's rallied really aggressively, up another 49 or 50% from there. And next, we'll take a look at the NASDAQ compared to this. It's clearly outperforming all the major indices, but specifically, we'll compare it to the NASDAQ. This is the daily chart, and you can see we had a little bit of a retrace here from around 230 back down to around 211. Pretty volatile stock, large moves in both directions. So if you are going to trade this short term, definitely be aware that the volatility is large, and these moves happen pretty quickly. Even this move here from around 200 back down all the way to the lows here of 150, a 20% move in just a couple of days, right before that really large move up, again, around 50% to its highs. To me, this says you need to be careful on your entry and exits and stick to your plan. Make sure you don't jump in on a whim, because you could certainly get crushed if this is not a stock that you're willing to own and wait for that rally. In terms of price targets, you can see that 280 level up here at that longer term level of resistance, which is pretty close to the all-time highs where Goldman Sachs is saying that the stock is going to go. Looking at the shorter term resistance, you can see here, it's closer to that $155 or $160 price level over the next couple days. But after this really large move up here on the 13th, I would expect a little bit of a down move, maybe a retest of this short-term support level. And if that breaks, the next lower level is going to be closer to that 211 to 215 range. And hopefully this level of support holds, and then you'd be looking at a really nice move to that next level of resistance of around 25 or 26%. So to summarize, very volatile, pretty solid support, and definitely is seeing a lot of demand right now due to the geopolitical environment. Next, looking at the NASDAQ compared to CrowdStrike, you can see same big drop, not as big of a percentage though. So you can see this is around 20% as opposed to that around 50% drop that CrowdStrike saw. And then you see that similar rally. CrowdStrike had a nice rally, as did the NASDAQ. Again, smaller rally because there is less volatility, closer to 15% instead of 50%. But since then, the NASDAQ has dropped closer to around 8 or 9% from its most recent highs, whereas CrowdStrike is still sitting in this very bullish pattern above that most recent level of support, whereas the NASDAQ is looking very bullish and looks like it's going to retest closer to that 334 or 330 for its next level of support. which is obviously not as bullish as CrowdStrike, which is looking to the upside. Looking at the option chain here and the volume, you can see the at-the-money puts are trading around 600 per day, and the at-the-money calls are around 500 per day. Big volume at the 240 calls here at 2,500, and then around 1,500 at the 250 calls, so definitely some bearish potential, and not a whole lot of put selling going on right now. It might make sense to actually purchase these shares and then sell these further out of the money calls for potential upside. But if you are looking to trade the puts, you could trade the at-the-money puts for around $6.50 to $7, or you could go 1 or 2 strikes out of the money and still get a pretty decent credit on the weekly. This is the 5 days to expiration puts, get around $5.50 to go down $2.50. Or if you go down $5, you can still get somewhere around $4.60, at least at the closing prices on Thursday. If you did want to go a little bit further out to the 2-week puts, you can get almost $10 in credit with an out-of-the-money percentage chance of 49%. So definitely a 50-50 chance that you're going to end up out of the money. But you could go a little bit further down to the 220s and still get a decent credit, around $4.25 over the next 2 weeks, which is still a nice return, 1% per week, and it gives you a little bit of downside protection. For me personally, I do really like this company, and I think they are one of the market leaders, if not the market leader, in cybersecurity right now. And you're always going to pay a premium for the best in brand. And for me, that is CrowdStrike. So I do think it is a little bit expensive, so definitely be careful on your entry. But also, this stock is continuing to head higher and is stronger than the broader markets. Definitely comment down below what you think of CrowdStrike, and like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. It really does help grow my channel and hopefully better the lives of more people in the future. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes, and have a great day.